Hey guys, today we are going to make an apple crumb cake. This is another perfect fall dessert. It's got lots of cinnamon and pecans and delicious apples in it. And it's a great mix between an apple crumb pie and a cake. And we're going to have it in layers. So we've got on our bottom layer, we've got the delicious spicy cake. Then we're going to have our layer of apples that are loaded with cinnamon and sugar. And then on the top, we're going to have this buttery crumb topping that is loaded with pecans that get toasty in the oven. And it's just a great dessert. A lot of times with apple cakes, I have found when you chop up the apples really small and you put them in the cake, you don't get a lot of the apple flavor. I like to get the chunks of apple. So that's why I worked on this recipe. I think I have perfected it. Fingers crossed we get it right today. Let me show you how to make it today. All right, the first thing we're gonna do is get our pan ready. So I have a 9-inch springform pan, and I'm gonna put a piece of parchment down in it. You also wanna go ahead and preheat your oven to 375 degrees. And for my parchment, I know there's a trick that Martha Stewart showed us where you fold the paper, but my parchment sheets don't come in perfect squares, and so it's just too much trouble to deal with all the folding. So I just do this. I just turn my pan over upside down. I put my parchment on top of it, and then I just take a pair of scissors, and then I just cut around. All right, there we go. It's not beautiful, but it doesn't matter. Nobody's gonna see it. All right. So I'm gonna spray my pan just a little bit so my parchment will stick. And then I'm gonna put my parchment circle down in there. See, that works good. And then I'm gonna spray the sides and the bottom of my parchment. So we've got our pan ready. We're gonna sit that aside and we're gonna go ahead and start working on one of our layers. We're gonna go ahead and work on our apple layer first so it can kind of be sitting and absorbing some of that sugar and that cinnamon. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on cutting up my apples. You can use any type of apple you want. I'm using whatever I have on hand, and these are ambrosia apples. Then these are the ones that my husband likes to take to work for lunch, and so those are what I have on hand, so that's what I'm gonna use. These are pretty good size, so I'm just gonna use 2 of them. If you have really small apples, you might wanna do 3. So I'm gonna get these peeled and chopped up into fairly large chunks, which I'll show you, and get them in a bowl, and then I'll show you what goes next. Okay, I've got my apples all chopped up. If y'all can see the big chunks I have these in. These are bigger chunks because I want to have those big chunks of apple like you would get in an apple pie. So those are my 2 apples cut up, and to that I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons of sugar. I'm gonna add a heaping teaspoon of cinnamon. And then I'm also gonna add a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. You won't be able to taste this, but it'll just kind of help the apples to break down and soften a little bit and keep them from turning brown also while we're getting our other layers ready. So I'm just gonna stir this together until the apples are all coated with the cinnamon and sugar. So that's what they look like. So I'm gonna sit this aside, and then we're gonna get ready to work on our next layer. Okay, the next layer we're gonna work on is our crumb topping layer. So what we're gonna start with is we're gonna pour in a 1/2 cup, which is also 1 stick of melted butter. I'm gonna add a cup of all-purpose flour. And now we're gonna add in a 1/3 cup of granulated sugar and a 1/3 cup of brown sugar packed. I like to use dark brown sugar. We're going to add in a teaspoon of cinnamon. Again, I did mine a little heaping. We're going to add in a half a teaspoon of salt. And we're going to add in a whole cup of chopped pecans. We're going to mix that all together. Okay, we've got our crumb topping done, and this is what it looks like. You want it to be crummy looking. That's why it's called a crumb topping. So now we're going to sit this aside and we're going to work on our cake. All right, for our cake, you can do this in the mixer if you want to, but I wanted to show you how easy it is to do it just with a bowl and a whisk. So it's pretty much dump in all of the ingredients, which are down in the description of this video. The full recipe, all of the ingredients and measurements are in the description of the video. But we're just going to dump everything in, mix it up, and then we'll be ready to go. So we're going to start with a cup of flour. And I'm using all-purpose flour. Then we're going to go in with a 1/3 cup of sugar. Now I'm going in with a teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of baking soda, a half a teaspoon of salt, another heaping teaspoon of cinnamon. We need a teaspoon of vanilla. We need a 1/3 cup of milk. We need a 1/3 cup of vegetable oil. One egg. And we will need a whole cup of applesauce. I'm using the cinnamon applesauce, is the kind I like to use, but we need a whole cup of applesauce. And that's all the ingredients for your cake. So now we're going to whisk that together. All right, and there's your cake batter. And now we're getting ready to assemble our cake. Okay, now we're getting ready to assemble our cake. We have our 3 layers all ready to go. We have our pan ready to go. So now it's just a matter of putting it together. So our first layer is going to be our cake. So we're just going to pour that in. All right. Now we are going to put our apples on top of the cake very carefully. And we don't want to mix up the layers. You can see how this has already made some juice in here. So I'm just going to very carefully, I'm going to use a big spoon, I think. I'm just going to carefully kind of sit these around in my cake. All right, I've got my apples in there. I tried to carefully lay them in an even layer on top, and I did pour that juice that the apples had made over the top of that. So that's our second layer. And now for our third final layer, our crumb topping. This layer will probably be easier to do with your hands. Okay, that's our finished product there. There is our cake. So now we're gonna bake it in a 375-degree oven for about 45 to 50 minutes. Hey guys, we're back. We are here to do a taste test of our apple crumb cake. Can y'all see that? How delicious does that look? I'm fixing to cut into it. On the top, we let it cool off some. It's still pretty warm. But on the top, I just made a simple icing out of powdered sugar, vanilla, and a little bit of milk, and drizzled that over the top. I'll have the measurements in the recipe in the description. And then I took a little store-bought caramel and drizzled that over the top as well. You don't have to do either one of those, but that's what I like to do. I know. So we're fixing to cut into it and see how it turned out.
What? The pie? The chicken and dumplings over there? Yeah. You want to go check on them?
Okay, here's our first piece out. You know, the first pieces usually don't look very good, but this one looks pretty good to me. If you can see the chunks of apple in that and the nice moist cake at the bottom, this looks delicious. That's Aaron's piece. I know. Oh, Aaron, you didn't bring your talker to tell us how it tastes. There's my piece. You can see that. The chunks of apple, the moist cake. All right, let's go in for a bite, Aaron. Oh, that is so good. So good.
Yummy.
Yummy, is it good? I'm gonna pass mine to Daddy.
That's why I'm hanging around.
Daddy was, stop kicking your feet. Daddy was hanging around so he could get a couple of bites of mine. That turned out really, really well. The chunks of apple, it tastes like you're eating an apple pie. It has the taste of an apple pie, but you get that cake in it. The apple still has a nice bite to it, which I love. Some people may not like that, but I love it because it really tastes of apple. And it's got a nice cinnamon taste to it, and with the pecans on top, it just turned out really, really well. So I really enjoyed this cake. This would be perfect with coffee. Although if I was having it with coffee, I would not put the icing on top because that does make it really sweet. So I would not want it that sweet if I was having it with coffee. But it turned out really, really good. And I'll try to show y'all one last time the inside of that. I got my parchment paper down there. I did not try and attempt to take my parchment paper off. So, okay, that's it. Aaron, did you enjoy it? Yeah. All right, Daddy, was it good?
Very good, yes.
Okay, Daddy enjoyed it. So, it's a huge hit at our house, so I hope you try it. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.